Hi there, welcome back. So I thought I'd give you my thoughts on the range reductions that are going through GW at the moment, specifically for Age of Sigmar. I thought it'd be interesting to look at how old these ranges are that are being delisted, how long, since people have bought them and all that sort of stuff. And what I've done is I've gone through each individual sprue and I've marked the date that is stamped on the sprue. Now, that may not be specifically the year that it came out. It may have come out the year after that date, because that date is basically when the sprue was finalised, not when it was released. So basically, I'm going to go through all the different ranges. We'll start with Stormcast Eternals. We'll have most of the focus on those and Slaves to Darkness, since those are really the most recent stuff that's going to get reduced. But I've got stuff to say on the rest of it as well. So we'll start with the Stormcast. So basically, the oldest stuff within this range is 10 years old. The majority of what's being released is from 2018. That's more than half of the range that we're losing. And really, I've got a bit of a following on this channel from the Mortal Realms magazine. And if any of you guys have collected that stuff, you are affected much more than anyone else, really. So imagine Mortal Realms came out in the UK in 2020. So that is, it ran until sort of the end of 2001. So about 2.5 years ago is when that run ended. But basically half of your Stormcast force that came in that magazine is disappearing. So there'll be some updates to models and that kind of thing. So stuff will come back in that, guys, in which case you're just going to need to proxy it for the newer stuff. But really, more than half of your stuff is going to disappear. Some will be replaced, most of it won't be. In some other territories, so perhaps in France only finished their Mortal Realms run 6 months ago, and they're already losing half of their stuff. So that magazine in France and in some other areas as well, they've only recently finished, and already they're going to be losing a lot of that stuff. So disappointing from that perspective. Some of it is coming back with kind of updated models and that kind of thing. But yeah, certainly from a competitive perspective, you're not going to be able to play some of this stuff unless you basically, they allow you to play proxies, which in most places I'm sure will be fine. In other places, it won't be. They won't let you do it. Now, it's important to mention, of course, if you just play for fun, you can play this stuff forever. You can just stick with the current edition rules and all that sort of stuff, and you continue to play with your mates and all that kind of thing. But for anything competitive-wise, you're on a ticking time bomb for now. So that is the Stormcast Eternals. The other thing is that they don't actually mention all of the units that are disappearing from the Stormcast Eternals. So there are other models that, so for example here, the Knight Azeros. Now you can make the Knight Venator with this box. It doesn't mention that it's going here, but it is disappearing. So basically anything that's going here that has an alternative build within the box will obviously disappear as well. So it's not as limited as people might think. So next up is the Skaven. Not a lot to say about the Skaven, really. We know that there's obviously going to be a lot of new stuff coming out because they feature in the next edition box, the launch box, and obviously that will include all of the starter sets and that kind of thing that we get over the next couple of years. So massive updates are going to be happening for the Skaven. A lot of it is overdue because basically the entire range comes from, let's say 2010 and older. So quite a lot of older stuff here. So yeah, hardly surprising that a lot of this stuff is disappearing. Same can be said from the Bone Splitters. So all of the Bone Splitters sprues are from around about 2009. So yeah, quite aged. However, what I would say is Headracker's Mad Mob, which is going, that is actually from 2021. So those models are less than 3 years old at this stage, but they are going as well. Now, Warcry fans, I don't know what this all means for your collections going forward. So basically, a huge amount of all of the Warcry warbands are disappearing. And for example, Horns of Hashut, that it was mentioned that this is it was all from first edition Warcry stuff and all that. Horns of Ashur is not from first edition. That is current ed stuff that is being removed. And that came out in 2022. So Horns of Ashur are less than 2 years old. The rest of them, basically, there's almost nothing that is older than 5 years at this stage. Most of it is less than 4. So yeah, all of this stuff is going to be going. The other thing that's on here is Kagra's Ravengers. Those are from Underworlds. That is 2020 sculpts. So yeah, quite disappointing for all of that sort of stuff to be going. I don't know what that means for future editions of Warcry. So when we get new battle tomes, or I forget the name it was called, the Tome of Champions, which is previously had a lot of the older stuff in it. I don't know if that in future editions of that will include this stuff. I tend to think it won't. Next up, for Beasts of Chaos, a lot of this stuff is old, going back to the sort of 2011, 2012. A lot of old stuff there. There is a few things which are much more up to date. So, for example, in the middle here, the Beasts of Chaos Beast Lord, that is a 2022 sculpt. So that is disappearing. The Vanguard box, obviously that box is somewhat newer than the contents that are in it. But obviously if you bought that box when it was bundled as a Vanguard box, that wasn't that long ago either. That is going. Things like the Herdstone, that's 2018. And the Endless Spells, those are from 2022 as well. So those, again, less than 2 years old at this stage, also going. And then finally, the rest of the stuff, the kind of the mixed bag of what we're left with here. I'll be honest with you, this is all old stuff. I believe it's all kind of 2010, 2011, and I believe before. So yeah, certainly a bunch of old stuff here. Things, I don't actually remember seeing any of this stuff on the tabletop in the last few years against anyone that I've played. So yeah, that's disappearing as well. So really, I mean, to sum it all up, I personally think it's disappointing for the Slaves of Darkness stuff to be going. It's all less than 5 years old. Most of it's less than 4 years. Some of it's less than 2 years. Why don't you just keep it, For the sake of everyone who owns those models, they are the backbone of Warcry, which I don't know where Warcry is at the moment. I know that I've stopped collecting it now, and I went right through the first edition, collected everything, and everything right up until the end of the big boxes for second edition, and I stopped collecting then. So I don't know how popular the game is these days. But I worry that by just reducing all of these models, it will, it's going to lack further support going forward. So, for example, you can bet your bottom dollar that by the time they do a new edition, there's going to be further reductions in a big way. And I guess what all these changes mean for me is that regardless of how old your collection is, there's an opportunity for it to face massive reductions. So, for example, Beasts of Chaos has pretty much disappeared. That kind of whole army, or that whole section of the chaos has all but just been destroyed by these changes. Slaves of Darkness is big. It's got a lot of stuff in it as well. But I am disappointed to lose all this stuff. Stormcast, obviously, they need to make room for all the new stuff that's going to be coming through in the current edition. Same can be said of the Skaven as well. So not so much surprised, but still a bit disappointed for all the people that have collected this stuff, especially Mortal Realms fans, who have had a lot of this stuff for a very limited period of time, who are going to see it disappear from the tabletop. And again, we know they're going to get rules coming out in the next month or so that are going to take us through for about the next year competitively, but they are pity rules. They're not going to go very far for us. But there you go. It's a bit of a whinge today. Sorry about that. I try not to complain about these sort of things too much anymore. But yeah, bit of disappointment for me, to be fair. Like I say, I own a lot of this stuff, and yeah, I'm sad to see it go. And again, I suppose if you think about the collection of Warhammer in general, a few years ago when I started collecting, I'd always seen it as kind of a little bit of an investment. So I thought that your collections used to generally hold quite a lot of their value. I certainly don't think that's the case anymore. I think things lose their value very, very quickly in today's sort of collection habits and that kind of thing. And I know that loads and loads of this stuff that is on the tabletop right now is going to go for pennies on Facebook, or sorry, on eBay and that kind of thing. I'm sure that whole armies and that sort of thing are going to start disappearing for pennies, especially over the next couple of years. But like I say, I hope you're enjoying playing this stuff, and I hope this doesn't affect you too badly. And obviously, you could continue to play this stuff, with your friends and that kind of thing. Play it forever. But yeah, competitively, we're getting reined in a little bit. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Sorry for the whinge. I will see you all later.